Uncle Mark.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah. Well, I'm good. I don't know why you're bothering me.
Go back to sleep.
Yeah. No, I was wide awake. 24/7, 365. What can I do for you?
Well, this show is nothing if not an attempted guide to find your way through the much and plenty bullshit there is in this world.
Sure.
But there's still a lot.
Oh, there's no end. There's no end. It's the one renewable resource.
That's so true.
Yeah. As the Earth is dying, we will blanket it in a layer of bullshit bigger than the Pacific garbage patch.
I'm pretty sure we can stop the
Yes.
global warming with essential oils if we try hard enough.
There's got to be a way.
Or we can get it going even faster and just end this misery for all of us now.
Yeah, if we're going to hit the iceberg, let's hit it with the pedal to the metal.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we had this chat.
Well, I think...
And scene.
Our listeners come here for a hopeful message, and we just fucking gave it to them.
Listen, I'm gonna stop you right there, Uncle Mark, because look, we have talked a lot about various woos on this show. Your pseudosciences, your magical claims, your various and sundry bullshits.
Yes, sure.
Just this week, I came across a Facebook ad trying, and I'm not lying here, trying to sell me a rock that would save the bees from Wi-Fi. That is true.
Sorry, what?
Shit.
Sorry, what?
Right there. I posted about it on the How to Heretic Facebook page. You guys can all look at it. It's amazing. But the question is...
Wait a minute. Did you buy the rock or not?
I'm working on it.
Okay.
Is the bee okay? I need to know.
I'm saving up for the bees. It's for the bees, everybody. The bees. But look, how do we know? How do you and I and you know that it's bullshit? What makes us so sure? None of us are scientists, and other than me swishing an uncomfortable amount of goop around in my mouth for our oil pulling segment and the jade egg that Uncle Mark currently has up his mangina, it's not like we actually try any of the woo that we denigrate.
That's
It's
true.
about breathing, guys, and I'm really struggling right now. But go on. I really hope I don't sneeze.
So how do we know it's bullshit? How can anybody who isn't on the inside, meaning a scientist that's studied that or that's in that specific field or a practitioner of whatever it is, how can we know whether a claim is true or not?
Is it white man's intuition? I think it's white man's
I
intuition.
feel like always go with white man's intuition. I mean,
It's never guided anything wrong.
It's gotten President Trump to president.
Hey, it's
so-
worked for white men pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You look around at the state of white men, we're doing okay. All right. Well, from
and no downsides for anyone.
That's right. Now, what could go wrong now?
Yeah.
Listen, for most of human history, literally millions of years, we as a species just banged around the world like idiots with only the most basic notions of how to tell what was true from what wasn't. If the village elder said that he knew for a fact that the crops grow better when young women give more BJs, there was just no way to know if he was right or if he was just a dirty old asshole. Hint, it's both. Which is why
Googling BJs right
Yes.
now.
Okay, good.
Well, okay. All right.
Yep.
I'm with you.
Okay.
If only there was a rock that would save the BJ.
Anyway, look, that's why we on this show like to talk about science so much, because it is, in fact, the best method we humans have for, at least the best method we've come up with so far, to separate good information from total nonsense. And that's all it is. It's a method. It's a system for weeding out as much of the bullshit as we possibly can so that we can have some semblance of real, actual knowledge. Unfortunately, even though we as a species are far and away the most smartest damned things on the planet, we're still just big dumb apes with cell phones. So we're plagued with cognitive biases, fallacious thinking, even with the powerful methodologies we've created for ourselves to try and work around those weaknesses, we still do science wrong a lot. Take, for example, Aristotle, who was one of the great-grandfathers of the modern scientific method, who had the most revered brain in the world for 1,000 years and was wrong about almost everything.
Well, he was also a bugger for the bottle.
Well, why not? I mean, at that point, why wouldn't you
Some
be?
Python deep cuts, guys. That's great. Good job, Doug.
He thought that the reason some birds disappeared in the winter and then came back in the spring was that they must morph into other creatures. He was pretty sure that eels just grew out of the mud and did not actually have any kind of sexual reproduction. He thought that that only light-skinned women could have an orgasm. So, the classic 1-2 punch of racism and sexism.
That was a sharp left turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uncle Doug, on the other hand, is convinced that no women can actually have an orgasm, so Aristotle's at least one up on him.
The experiment's not over yet.
Bye,
guys.
Still trying. Anyway, here's the point. Even though science isn't perfect and most of us are not experts on anything, there are still some good principles that we can use to evaluate claims that we come across. And rather than me and my ding-dongness try to do this concept justice, I'm going to go with what Skeptic.com has, which is a lovely baloney detection kit that you can download, or they have just an infographic that's quite useful. And I will just sort of borrow heavily from that.
Tip the number one. Has Oprah ever said anything about it?
Right. Well, actually, that is tip number one, which is who is making this claim?
Yes.
What is their track record with claims? Have they been known to lie? Do they believe a bunch of other stuff that is likely bullshit? For instance, I know a guy named Dave who showed me YouTube videos that convinced him that cloud busting is super true. He also is convinced that Reiki is real. So how should I approach his claim that smoking DMT will send me to a literal alternate dimension where benevolent beings will guide me spiritually? Him being credulous on other points doesn't make this particular claim untrue, of course, but it certainly can be good reason to give his claims just a little bit of extra scrutiny.
How important is this Dave character in your life?
Not.
Okay.
No. But it is fun to hear him be really, really serious about cloud busting.
Someone I know just told me recently that their wife's, see if I get this right, I asked him what his wife does, and she's a a life regression psychologist.
Oh, God.
And I was I had to stand there and just stare at him for a full 5 seconds and just keeping everything inside of me.
Right.
That sounds nice.
Yeah.
And no, I don't want to visit her.
You are doing damage in the world, lady. Okay. Anyway, so the next thing to think about is the claim coming from only one source? So good science is peer-reviewed and then replicated by other people. If all of the people making the claim are pointing to a single source, especially if that source is the How To Heretic, maybe don't dump all your trust in that just yet.
Well, not two of the uncles. I'll let you guess which ones, but there's one you can trust. That's for sure.
Yes, and one of us always tells the truth, and one of us always lies, and the third one is Doug. Anyway, so this next one, it's a little tricky for people who are already very deep into the woo, but for the rest of us, check in with how you already know that the physical world works. So. Of course, there's a bunch of shit that we don't know at this point. Most of the things in the universe, we don't know. But we do know a few things. We can be confident in a few things.
Yes.
So if somebody makes a claim that involves gravity being a hoax or, tomatoes are part of a mass delusion or whatever, maybe require a lot of good evidential support before believing that.
Tomatoes are Jews.
Well, I mean... Never mind.
Oh, boy.
Wave off.
I
was staring down the barrel of a tomato circumcision joke and was like, I can't make that happen. There's no way. Somebody could do it. Anyway, the example that they give at Skeptic.com is, would it really make sense for aliens to come to Earth, help people build giant rock pyramids, and then fuck off forever? That's not their words. That's my words. But I mean, that's a good example.
By the way, I saw an excellent meme about that showed a bunch of ancient monuments kind of clustered in this frame. It said, just because white people didn't build it doesn't mean aliens did.
Right. Yeah. Good point. It's very funny because so many people believe something so deeply, like aliens built the pyramids. Yeah. And then when you say, well, why? Why would they have done that?
What's the motivation? Yeah.
and why didn't they stick around, or why did they just leave and never come back?
Right.
And then the smoke, or they'll just start wildly speculating.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. If you ask them a question about it, and the answer should be I don't know, and what answer comes is just quick thinking, like on their feet, thinking about it and trying to speculate and just presenting it as fact.
Yeah.
It's a great reason to completely dismiss whatever's being told to you.
That's my experience with people. It's typically conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Is if you just keep asking follow-up questions, it just ends.
Yeah.
And they haven't thought that far.
Well, and that's exactly right. And I think that's maybe, Dan, that's part of this methodology, right? Is that, okay, aliens came to Earth. Why?
Yeah.
What are they doing here? Oh, they're probing people. Okay, for what? For a planned invasion. Like, okay, just think about the capital investment of interstellar space travel and doing it for no particular reason other than putting things in people's butts. Now,
let me tell you something.
I'm there for that.
I know lots of people who have gone to great lengths for butt stuff, so don't let's not discount.
Exactly right. But those aliens are not me. Right. So why? And that's you just keep asking why. Why?
Well, and
why?
also ask, what is your evidence?
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
you believe that. Tell me what your evidence is for believing that.
Right.
Right.
And if their evidence is just, I just think that's true, as is the evidence that was presented to me recently that that fluoride in the water causes what was it? It was not autism, Alzheimer's. Fluoride in the water causes Alzheimer's. Why do you think that? I just believe that's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then you just have some fun with that and buy your very expensive water filter that you're so proud of.
Right.
And I will go on with my day. This one may be my favorite thing, which is, what would the critics say? Play this game with me at home if you want to, which is, especially if you want to believe that something is true. You know, if you have an ailment and someone says this is going to solve that problem, you're motivated to believe that that's true.
Sure.
You want that to be
yes.
true. So the best thing to ask yourself about that is, what would people who don't want to believe that this is true say? How would they craft their arguments? So you ask yourself, you just try to prove it wrong.
Right.
Good science is not trying to prove something right. If you have a hypothesis, good science is trying to prove that hypothesis wrong.
Right.
And
Yes.
if everything you throw at it doesn't stick and it still stands, then you've got a pretty strong hypothesis.
Right. And if you propose a scientific theory in whatever field you're in,
Yeah.
your peers, that's the peer review process, are going to try and tear it apart.
Right.
They're going to go at it from every direction. And if they find a flaw, if they find an error or an intentional fabrication, you're done.
Yeah,
your goose is cooked.
It makes you look horrible.
Yeah, but there's all that science and stuff, but this is how I feel about it. You know what I mean?
I know.
kind of feel this thing.
Okay.
We have a great friend, the three of us, who is right now recovering in hospital, as they say in Britain, from a liver transplant. And what saved his life was the science behind organ transplantation and not colloidal silver. Right.
Although
That
he is a lovely shade of blue now, so I
It's
think
a little
both
bit
had a good effect.
Right.
But think about the complexities of the different kinds of scientific and technological advances that brought that to happen to our friend.
Yeah.
The medical science, the transportation system that was able to transport that kidney on a plane, or liver,
Right.
pardon me. The communication system that was available to make that information move.
All the little machines in the hospital room that go bing.
Yes, you have to take all of that as a whole. You
Right.
can't pick and choose. You can't say the earth is flat and then fly on a plane somewhere and
Right.
use your cell phone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
Like-
that's we don't have to get into this whole fucking flat Earth thing because your
didn't mean to bring
your
that
brain will go flat. But did you know that the people who were some of the people who are proponents of the flat Earth thing say that the other planets are not? So
Yeah.
It's just Earth.
the forces of the universe do things a certain way, except this one time.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, that's
How?
not that's not great. That's not a strong point.
Right.
So the next few points that theskeptic.com infographic makes are about science. So things like, where does the preponderance of evidence point? Is the claimant playing by the rules of science, or are they cheating? Are they providing positive, not negative evidence? Now, that's a really interesting thing, because woo peddlers are big into negative and non-evidential evidence. For instance, so negative evidence is stuff like, we surveyed, 200 people who use our foot pads, and none of them have reported having gout since they started using them.
Right.
That can't just be coincidence.
Right.
Well, guess what? Having no evidence for one thing does not equate to having evidence for the opposite.
Right.
So those are things that you can watch for, and the more you learn about science, the more you know what you need to be watching for
Yeah.
in a bad study or whatever.
Well, and in the world of woo and conspiracy theory, there can never be a coincidence. But in a universe as giant as ours, sometimes things happen that are not related to each other, that are just coincidental. You know what I mean? Like, I got a headache and the football team I like won.
Right.
Those things don't necessarily equate to each other.
But I'm
But
going to
they
keep
don't necessarily not.
I'm going to
there you
keep
go.
hitting you over the head with a hammer before every game, just in case. So the other thing is, does the new theory work better or account for more phenomena as the old theories? If it seems to really explain one thing really well, but doesn't work with a whole shitload of other issues, guess what? You haven't solved anything.
Right.
So yeah, you got to kind of put it into the whole context of, reality.
Yeah.
And finally, and this is a big one, does the source have a reason to slant the findings? So do they stand to benefit from the outcome being one thing or another? The example they use is someone who is pro-business might feel that they should be skeptical of global warming. But also, are literally all of the studies done on essential oils funded by the essential oil industry? Well, maybe you have a reason for skepticism.
Right.
Right.
So that's their big thing. I wanted to make one big point, which was, remember that and this is so huge to me, you don't have to take a position. No position is totally good.
Right,
So
because you can say, I don't know.
Yeah, the most honest position to take if there is any doubt about anything is zero position. Is to say, if the news media starts shouting about a new study that says cell phones are making millennials grow horns on the back of their head, or chocolate helps you lose weight, and somebody asks you if you think that's true, don't know.
Right.
Just don't know about it. It's the most amazing thing to say, I don't know. I don't know is the most powerful, liberating phrase in the thinking person's arsenal. And the more proudly and strongly you can say it, the more your uncles will respect you.
Right.
Well-
and you will notice if you pay attention to people, public scientists, to people who are in the public eye, who are on television like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye or whoever, they will frequently say, we don't know. Right?
Yep. Yep.
We don't know why that happens. We don't know where that came from. We don't know what caused that to begin.
We don't
But
know what makes up the majority of the universe.
Right.
You will not often hear the Pope or the Dalai Lama say that. Right.
Well,
or
and
the
even
megachurch
worse,
dickhead, right?
or fucking Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Try and make him admit he doesn't know a thing.
Right.
Just try.
And this is a man who knows nothing.
Right.
Exactly.
You can ask him about any subject, and he will spout facts at you
Yeah.
Yeah.
about that subject. And that's the thing. I think a lot of times in this society, we are actually trained that it is weakness to say, I don't know.
Especially in that world that he inhabits.
Yeah.
That many of his followers inhabit. That the Venn diagram of religious people almost perfectly equates to.
Well, I was wrong to say he doesn't know anything. He is quite an expert in early American colonial airports.
Yes,
So
yeah,
the
I
Battle
think-
of Lexington Concord Airport.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
right.
Oh, the crossing
then-
of the TWA.
Crossing of the tarmac.
And another thing I think is important to point out to Dan, if I can just leap in on this.
Please
The
do.
sources of woo is oftentimes, woo can be an inheritable trait, or crazy beliefs
Yes.
can be an inheritable trait, because you don't know that you can't always trust, say, your parents or your grandparents or people in authority around you, right?
Right.
you don't know, it takes a long time for people to realize, oh, my parents either lied to me or they didn't do their homework, right? And they didn't know that. So just because my parent says it doesn't make it true, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a hard lesson to understand.
It can be really tricky. And yeah, when the people you've trusted the most are lying to you, it's hard to untangle like what is and what isn't real. Like
they may not be lying to you. You know, they may not be lying in their heart. They're not telling you something that's true, but they may believe it's true. But that doesn't make it a fucking true.
No, and believing in woo can make you susceptible to other woos. We've talked about this a lot. But we, as skeptics and atheists, are also susceptible to this.
Sure, 100%.
And we need to be careful, even in this age where honesty and truth doesn't seem to matter anymore.
Right.
Because we're about to enter this era of deep fakes. You guys have seen this stuff, right?
Yeah.
That you are going to see things with your eyes and hear them with your ears that are not true. And we've got to be very careful to not follow those things or believe those things just because we saw it, which is crazy, but there it is.
I'm not even real Uncle Dan. So there you go. Look, and I do want to say that like this, me saying how much I love the phrase "I don't know" and how much I love admitting to what I do and don't know. That doesn't mean you have to give equal measure of possible versus impossible for everything that you come across.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that everything weighs out equally.
There are not two sides to every issue that are equal to each other.
I mean, just because you haven't looked into it yourself, if your Aunt Stephanie says she is positive that a poultice of hibiscus petals and llama semen will cure your lingering case of only having one arm, you can feel free to tell her to please never just say anything to you ever again.
Yes,
it's fine.
Yeah.
This is Bertrand
you don't have to
Russell's
ruin
teapot.
Yeah.
You know, you don't
right.
Exactly.
just because you can't disprove it doesn't mean you have to see it as equally possible or impossible.
And it's the trap that like got people like Bill Nye fall into where, okay, I'm going to debate a flat earther.
Right.
Well, you have just given half of the stage to a flat earther.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that normally wouldn't have any place on that stage.
You have ceded that there is 50% merit to both sides.
Right.
Right. And that's utter bullshit. But
yeah.
can I tell you my favorite woo story before we're done with this? It's a
I
quick
hope
one.
you do. I hope you will.
So I'm not going to give too much away about this guy because he's kind of still around, but he was a person I knew a long time ago, an ex-Mormon guy who was a little bit susceptible to woo, and he somehow got in with this guru who insisted he buy a $5,000 crystal skull as a focus for the energy of whatever. And he told him to listen to whatever the $5,000 crystal skull had to say. And guess what the crystal skull had to say?
What?
That he needed to buy another $5,000 crystal skull.
He needed a friend.
No, you got to buy me enough for a game of poker. Just get 6 or 7 more and we should be all right.
Yeah. So there you go.
There you go.
Don't fall for that.
Woo is, lest you think it's harmless, most woo, there is real harm that can happen, even in the least harmy sort of feeling. Like, if nothing else, it's sad to see a loved one spend money on something that will do nothing for them. So that doesn't mean be aggressive with other people. That just means like sort of get your own mind right and learn how to spot the woo. We'll keep looking out for you as well. Your uncle's got your back.
But I'm with you, Uncle Dan. Woo is a trap, and it can be a yoke. And if you can free somebody from their woo prison with reason and good-natured questions, please do.
Yeah. I mean, if you can. That can be a tricky proposition. You need to be careful because people, just like religion, people tend to see their woo as part of their identity, not just the thing that they do or that they like, but also who they are.
Well, that's very typical of Libras, I think. Don't you think?
I think so. So. So I think if you get the opportunity and you can do it gently, yes, guide people as best you can away from their woo, but don't ruin relationships over it. But at least you should know what is and isn't real in the universe as best you can. So get out there and eschew the woo.
Eschew the wheel. You kids have fun, huh?
All right, let's move on.
Let's move on.